All right, thank you. We had some technical difficulties getting started. Gotta love technology, especially right after Mercury retrograde ends, but I am persistent. So,
Amazing.
um, but we have the wonderful, amazing Allison Pagano, correct? That's how I say it. Yep.
Mhm.
So we've known each other now for at least 4 years. I think we met like in 2020 through Nicole Gale and then through Emily Joy Harris. So we have things in common. Hey, Angela. And then because we're both massage therapists, we both do quantum healing work. But you also do embodied dance,
Hmm.
um, which I have taken some of your workshops over the years that were incredible. Like I remember feeling at first like a little shy, but through your help and just your guidance, like really being able to get into the movement and feel the release, uh,
Hmm.
which was, it was. I remember the first time after like the first workshop you did, like feeling amazed of like, wow, like that really worked. Um,
Wow.
so, and I know like some of your students, because you also teach, you teach people how to teach embodied dance, correct?
Right.
Um,
Hmm.
they always speak highly of you. So,
Hmm. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been amazing. And it was great that we did a workshop. What was that? The Healing the Lemuria time several years ago too, which was pretty powerful. So I love being able to combine the quantum aspect with the body aspect. And I feel like why isn't most people doing this? It's time. We have the knowledge, we know. So thank you for that beautiful introduction. And it's just nice to hear your experience because sometimes you just don't know. So it's wonderful. Thank you.
you're welcome. It's my pleasure. You know, I I think it really is important to and especially like as body workers, like we understand how much gets trapped in our bodies, and that if we don't process that out as well, like we can do all the emotional healing and quantum healing that we want, but until we also move it out of our bodies, which I love breath work for that. I love dance. I love yoga, like because they're things that help your body
Mm,
energy out. Like
right.
I think in the past year I've gotten into like the somatic movement as well, like those
Hmm.
small, gentle movements of honoring the body and the release from that.
Hmm. Yeah, I see it like, and thank you for sharing that too. I see it like the body is like the greatest tool and wisdom keeper, number one, but it's also like such a gateway into our deepest way of being able to emotionally process something at the body level. Because what I've been so curious about and like bewildered by is how when we turn something over to the body, something that we're struggling with or something that we can't quite figure out, or like a story even that we have, and we really give it to the body and we say, okay, this is the thing that I'm holding, this is where it is, this is how I'm starting to move it, and you really surrender into that, there's something that becomes known or worked through that is so different than what you think it is. It's so different than the way the mind would have worked it out. And it's beautiful and perfect. And I'm usually moved to tears because I feel like the body holds the truth
Mm,
of it. And it's like, oh, this thing is actually about that,
mm,
not about the thing that I thought it was. And when you drop down into that root essence core, which is for me, it's like probably you too on some level, but for me, it's like getting to the root of what something is. For me, is like that is what healing is like getting to the root. And the body allows you to do that, but you have to be really curious, compassionate, and quite courageous to meet it. But it's where all your power lies.
yep.
So it's pretty fascinating. And I feel like I'm going to be a student of this work until I die.
Yeah.
It's just like it's so much bigger than me, and it's like, yeah, it's such a gift to be able to listen to it and share it.
Yeah. And I think, you really hit the nail on the head of like getting to the root cause. And, like that's what I do with, or what I like to think I do with my quantum healing is,
Yeah.
actually getting to the root of like, where does this energy, this pattern come from?
Mhm.
Sometimes it is this lifetime, sometimes it's generational, and sometimes
Right.
it's a past life thing. And, there's so much programming, to have us view things negatively,
Mm.
when it's really not the truth. Or even like as, the inner child, which I think like
Mm.
is, a lot of what's held within our body. Um, we have this, we don't have the words to always express what's wrong, which is why, like, I mean, even within the body, like, where the pain is isn't always where the root cause is.
Absolutely. It's just the doorway. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
until you get in there and find what's there or find the root cause,
Mhm.
you're gonna like still keep looping. And I forget who I was talking to the other day, but we were talking about like the brain, and the pathways, the neural pathways that get created, when we do things repetitively,
Mhm.
until we start to break that repetitive thing and create a new neural pathway,
Right.
we continue to do the same thing.
Well, that's what I love about dance specifically. And you're a martial artist, so you kind of understand what I'm talking about. And what I love about it specifically is the use of something that people don't typically talk about in the somatic dance world, which is choreography.
Mhm.
And I'm like, every indigenous dance form did choreography, so people are going to have to get over it at some point. But, um, in working with choreography, it's that exact thing, right? Martial arts in a certain regard is like a certain choreography, right? So the choreography, or what I talk about when I think about choreography, I think about it as body language,
Mhm.
right? So it's like we have a rehearsed, repetitive neural pathways around certain body language or choreography. So when we give full witness, express, release, compassion to those pieces, then we can create these new um, body language patternings or choreography that can then bring those new neural pathways online and really give you, for me, like what I see, see about your work and my work, it's like empowering to really get through the old belief systems and to get through the things that you didn't even know were blocking you.
Mhm.
So it's such an empowering process to say, well, geez, like I'm just not held back anymore. Like it's just not there. It's that version of me that thought it was, I had to do this or I had to become less than or, whatever it was, people please. Like it's just shifts and it just ceases to be. So it's like, shit, that like you said, it really works. So yeah, thank you for that. And it's yeah, it's quite amazing.
Yeah. And I think like when, I've done your workshops, it's that like you go into that movement and you feel the resistance there, or you feel the emotion come up with like the almost like, the fear of like, of if I do this, and then like the restriction of like not going any further into that movement or that choreography, until like you kind of go through it a couple times and work through that resistance, and all of a sudden then like the energy and more expression opens up, and you
Yeah.
let go of that preconceived
Conditioning.
notion,
Hmm.
which is also like kind of, while we were working through the technical difficulties, we kind of hit on, the views that like our parents or families or like long-term friends like hold of us like this, this is who you were when you were 12, and even though you're 50, like it's still who you are, right? And they don't see the change in the transition. And then even like our own beliefs in ourselves of like, remembering either the pain that we went through, and so I can't do that again.
Right.
I don't want to get hurt.
Right.
that holds us
Yeah.
back. Like how much release could actually be there.
Hmm.
So,
Absolutely. And it was one of the funniest things that, it's so layered. Like I remember even one of the first things I came up to when I first started my online business back in 2020 was, my parents didn't really put me in dance classes. Like I was in the backyard dancing every day and it was just like my thing. And like, maybe if my parents were in the arts or there's something that was interesting, they would have, encouraged or supported or be like, oh, wow, you really like that. Maybe we should support it. But I didn't realize that I had created a belief that I wasn't worth investing in.
oh,
And I was like, shit, it goes back to me feeling like, well, if they can't see that I'm a dancer, then I'm not. Or if they can't see that what I'm doing is worth something, then it's not. And as children, we kind of take on what we assume our parents are viewing us as. And we go, well, the meaning I'm making is that I'm just not good enough. If they can't see it, I must not be that. And it takes such courage and strength to rise out of that
yeah.
because we have such a deep sense of belonging that's like such a anchored spot. It's like, well, I want to belong almost more than I want to rise into my power,
Mm.
right? So it's like, it's so incredible the journey that you have to take on when you truly start standing for your mission and why you're here. And it's like, I call it like the labyrinth of things that you go through, and it's its own hero's, heroine's journey, however you want to call it, right? Where it's like the minute you commit to not being small, the minute you commit to this being what you knew that your soul came here to do,
Mm.
guess what? Even if you've been working on yourself for 20 years, like I have, like you have, it's a whole other echelon of things that we're like, I thought that I worked through that. And it's like a whole new layer
Yep,
of,
I hear that all the time. I've been working through that. I don't know why it's coming back up. And side
yeah,
note, like that whole labyrinth thing sounds like a wonderful next workshop to put
yeah,
together.
yeah, good idea.
Um,
It would be like 12 months though.
yeah.
That's about like what it is, right? Of going through, you're like, shit, it's that thing. Oh my God, I turned the next corner. And I just feel like with my work, I'm like, all I'm doing with you is holding the flashlight and
Yep.
teaching you how to navigate it.
And that's exactly why I think it's so important, to work with, somatic practitioners, body workers, coaches,
Yeah.
and healers, even if like we're doing our own work, everybody holds a different mirror for us to see, because it's like what I have been through, I can hold a light to somebody else
Mm.
and show them what that next layer is, or show them that deeper truth, um and we unlock things. Like if we just do things on our own, all we can heal is what we ourselves know about ourselves, or our
Agreed.
own beliefs. And there's so many people are there. It's sad that there's been so many like bad healers, bad coaches, bad whatever, who have done more damage. So sometimes
Well, that's
people
the
lack the
piece.
trust. But
Yeah, that's the piece that's fascinating. And thank you for speaking on this because the thing that I see that's a little bit, because we have this crazy influencer culture, right? And it's just people with outrageous confidence in themselves. And that's about it.
Mhm.
Maybe they've done a yoga teacher training or maybe somebody told them whatever, but they haven't typically done the deeper processing work. And it's like, then they have all these massive things that they try to teach about, and it's about, a mile wide and an inch deep.
Mhm.
So, not for nothing, like everybody has to rise through their own, you know, work in their own way. And I'm not saying who should do what, but it can be tricky for people who have had these experiences where they hired expensive coaches or whatever, and they were promised all these things, but then this person can only really take them as far as they've been, which is maybe next door.
Yeah.
Right? So, and then people like, not for nothing, like people like you and I who have been trudging the fucking trenches, sorry for cursing,
That's
um,
right.
forever, for years and decades, who are still trying to think if we're good enough
Mhm.
and who have probably way more to get, I mean, think of like Emily is the most massive, amazing teacher that I've ever come across, and like what she's had to go through to get where she is, right? So it's like, it's just, it's a fascinating level of discernment
Mm.
to, to hold in these times. And it's like, well, really discerning who can hold you in the journey, and then who's just got a fancy web page that says some nice things. And, being able to really understand what's what around that. So,
Yeah.
do you have any tools or tips around that, or anything to add?
I think, if like listening for like, does something sound too good to be true?
Yeah,
And kind of using your own discernment around that. But sometimes like it's a rite of passage to have the not good coach or healer to realize, because everybody, even like the worst people, you learn something about yourself.
absolutely true.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, but I think, how does the person show up? How do they interact? I always find people who are really charismatic are not like, they're really shallow people. Like they don't hold the depth.
It's the influencer thing.
Yes.
The poor world wants healing, and they got influencers instead. So we're effed. Sorry.
But I also think it's because like,
Yeah.
we're in this global phase. And I was talking to my old roommate about it this morning, because like, there's been videos that have been popping up of like seeing two suns. I don't
Hmm.
know if you've seen those. Uh,
No.
but there's the planetary, I think it's Nibiru, that
Oh,
kind of
okay.
is
Yeah.
a energetic match of the Earth. And so I think
Isn't
it's
there
about
a Hopi
every,
prophecy about this as well? Is that
there
what
could be,
the Hopi prophecy is about?
yeah.
That I believe.
So like
Anyway, go ahead.
every
Yeah.
2,500 years, give or take, um, the orbits come in close together.
Mm,
So I think like what people might actually be seeing is that planet and the sun kind of at the same time.
mm,
But like throughout the Bible and other like Indian prophecies and things like that, like they talk about these chaotic times, because it's like the the gravitational pull of things is different because we have this influence now from this planet. And so it's like,
mm,
as they come close to each other, I think it shakes everything up. And then as they move apart, it's almost like that next golden age. And then we circle around, and then we'll, hit that point again where it's like, it's bringing all the darkness to the surface for us
yeah.
to look at, to witness, to heal within ourselves.
Mm,
And hopefully, like every cycle, we're uh, changing things and doing things differently. I think like we've been more in this like dark energy than we, have in the past. Maybe not. I mean, because, if you look at things like the Ascension Glossary, like there's been galactic wars for millions of years. So, uh,
yeah, it's a fascinating thing. I think, I mean, obviously I can't say that I know with certainty. Um, but from what you're sharing and what I can kind of think from what I feel, see, know, observe, and such is I think it's in our faces in a different way than it ever was before.
mhm,
So while all those things are true, and there has been these, these war essence energies, with us since since the planet fell, I think our recognition of it for those who are here. I mean, like, I think we maybe, back in the 1600s or whatever lifetimes we've had previously that we were still up against it. I mean, I think what we can see and understand about it now with all the different tools,
mhm,
and used to have to be a really strong soul to really see the layers of what it is, because I think for many people who want to cling to their belief systems around safety, you can't.
mhm.
You have to be willing to let that go and just trust God and just say, okay, I know I'm being given this information for a reason, and I'm being trusted that I can hold it. And I have to realize that I'm political, religious, like it's not the benevolent things that we were taught.
Yeah.
And the more comfortable that we can all get with questioning.
Mm-hmm.
Because the main thing, that we've all gone through in the last 4 years is the gaslighting and all of that. And it's like the thing that my spirit team told me in 2020 when I was like, what's the difference between people who can see what's happening and those who can't? Immediately they said blind belief in authority.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's the piece that, I feel like it's almost like, and I thank God for also one of my spirit team is Joan of Arc, probably you too. And it's like that spirit of conviction
Yep.
and of saying, no man will come between me and my relationship with God.
Yep.
And being able to question and being able to stand up. And like that's the thing that I feel the people I'm connected to, like we're the ones who are like willing to stand in it. And it's not comfortable, especially for, we want to bring it back to the friends and family and all of that piece, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
They,
what do you
and
go ahead?
especially like our parents, whatever kind of relationship we have with them, they do want
Right,
us to be safe and protected. So like when they see us doing things that aren't quite safe, they freak out. And Grace agreed with you, Allison, about the ability to question, and really owning our relationship with God and to God, over everything else. Because
mhm,
I definitely see that, like, strongly, like the people who have this strength and conviction to question things, and even when somebody else is like saying negative things back to them, like to really hold that ground. And I think even like the ego of those who are in power, whether they're in true power, like high level in our government, or if they're on the low level, in military police positioning. And again, this is not everyone, this is a generalized statement, but like this,
yeah,
those who are in those positions, who have this ego, and they are going to uphold something that they know is fundamentally not right. I mean, because like, we hear things of like, police in England, going in and letting, pedophiles or rapists go and prosecuting like the victim that says something out against these people. And it's
right.
like, as a military person or as a police officer, how are you not questioning that and just going along with that? Other than like
Right.
this ego driven, I have authority.
Right. Yeah, it's a very tricky, slippery slope, and it depends on so much on conditioning. And the funny thing is, and I'm sure that maybe, I don't know, yeah, if I mentioned it at some point, but I grew up in, fortunately or unfortunately, I grew up in a house full of police officers. My brother and father, both detectives and lieutenants, and both of them are rebels. Both of them are, so both of them are like, you're going to tell me to do this, I'm going to think about it for myself. And, they have their own flaws, I'll say that. But I do appreciate that I see them not taking things for face value and going, well, that's not right. And I feel very grateful because I think that's also probably not common.
Yeah. And probably
Like,
also where you get um where you could also hold that strength and power, and question things.
well, I wouldn't say that they really get or support me, but
No, but like you were raised in an environment that like,
yeah.
question things, and I think,
Yeah. Well, maybe, I don't know that I realized that. I think this is what I've realized since I've, been much more in my adult realm, because I think when I was a kid, I was just very shut down, awkward, shy, couldn't express or speak anything. And I just felt I was just that overly empathic. What's me, what's whoever, let me hide in my room and stretch and write stories. So, until I got out of that phase and I really started doing the work that enabled me to have a voice, that enabled me to feel what my own power was. Because if I just did what my family was doing, I would be completely still shut down. Um, and I think maybe there's something to even what you're saying though, but just having like family members that have some sort of like social authority, even if it's on a small level. Like I think I just felt like sort of protected, even though they weren't protective of me in many other ways. There was something of like a shielding with it. We're like, okay, and I think I'll be all right, So I think my part of my soul chose that for my the indignant or whatever that part of me that is like wants to just because I actually confront my father quite a bit, like since I was a kid, because even though he's a police officer, he's quite yeah, he's got his own yeah, he has a hard time, I think, with confrontation.
Mm.
Interestingly enough, he's Pisces, lets everybody get along. And I'm like, Dad, that's wrong. No, and I was the rebellious sort of thing. But yeah, anyway, side tangent.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure like, being empathic and then being, having a father who's like probably dealing with a lot of stuff on a day-to-day basis that as a child you didn't know. And you like, because we're trying to heal our parents, known or unknown, but not knowing what we're trying to take on. So I'm sure like even some of that overwhelm was,
Yeah. Well, this is the thing that, maybe you and I will even come together and do something collectively on this because the level of empathing the family trauma is something that I still can't quite extract myself from fully. Like if my mom has something or she's had something, I experience it still physically, no matter how much cutting, clearing, returning that I've done. And I just feel like this is my work, and this is my work to really at some point share more with others as I get even more skilled with doing it. Because the healers of our family, like we're the first generation that's really taking on the trauma like intently. And we're like, yeah, this stops with me. No more abusers of this kind, no more this, no more that. And we don't have the tools of, we like we're the first ones who are doing it. So we're like on the field just going, okay, I think this is what I need to do. And it's giving us the power to up level and teach more and train more in the work that we do. But we haven't had a template of really seeing what this could be because nobody's done it before that we've seen in our families. We're just kind of like, here we go.
yep.
Do you relate to that too?
um yeah, definitely like, my sister lives overseas, so like I'm the only one who is, close enough to my mom to help her through things. And, she's starting to go through that early stages of dementia or whatever.
Yeah.
So like that, it's definitely this like how to navigate it and how to like understand like what's her what's whatever she's going through, what's family trauma, and
Mm,
like when I drive to her place I'm having to like clear and prepare my energy, my mind to like hold a space for her. And then
mm,
when I drive back home having to clear again to like not bring any of that home with me, to the not hold on to like, any anger or anything, but truly to let it go.
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
it's
it's so
definitely,
much clearing. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. And yeah, it's so much clearing and so much witnessing.
yeah, and there's been, some beautiful stuff with it of like, um, like growing up, I remember, like having this awareness of something and this voice, as a child, I was, 8, 9, something like that. And I was about ready to say something to my mom, and like this voice very clearly saying to me, like, don't say anything. They won't understand. And so like I remained silent. And after my father passed away, like, talking to my mom about like what I do and kind of realizing that she had her own potential for this as a child. Like, she talked about some starseed book that she had in the 50s.
Right.
um
Oh, yeah, I have I don't know if that's the same book, but I think it might be. Ken Carey? Yeah,
I don't
anyway,
know.
sorry, go
She
ahead.
couldn't remember who it was, but she just
Okay.
knew, like she was 5, 6, 7, reading this book constantly
Mm.
and feeling something and remembering something, and she would talk about it to like basically like I think her parents and teachers told her not to.
Yeah.
Like, she was like really shut down. For me, I knew to like be quiet, but and not share it. So whether that was maybe even her voice saying like, don't say
Mm.
anything because, um, or whatever it is, but like, we're definitely like our parents' age, like, there are the first awakeners in their
Right.
age range. And then, there's us who, we have started doing more of that healing, because like both you
Right.
and Grace have
Well,
said,
we're also probably,
"Hey,
we're not in the fight or flight that most of them were in because they were in most, their generations, like grew up, my family was dirt poor in New York City, like had nothing. And
yeah,
like they were just trying to get by, like,
yeah."
8 kids in a family and trying to
They
figure out
were
how to,
coming out of, they grew up in World War I, World War II, the Cold
right,
War, Korean War, Vietnam, like,
exactly.
they were in the thick of all that. And not
Right.
that we haven't had our own, but it's not quite the same.
And they never talked about these things. They never taught. My father was in Vietnam. He doesn't talk about it at all. Not a word. So, yeah, I think that aspect of a vow of silence, to some regard
Yep,
of whatever it was, just to for lack of being comfortable expressing it, not knowing what would happen if you actually touched into those things or who could hold it or what would happen if you actually allowed, and my mom too, it was like I ended up being the person in the middle who was trying to pull these things out of them. And then all of the trauma that she never told my father started coming out once I was on my healing journey, and it's like, you guys have been married for 30 years and you never talked about this, So it's pretty what I can say at this point, and it sounds like you too, is that even though I've had my own like sometimes resentment for taking so much of that on, like I can just feel the compassion for the pain that they have.
yep, yep.
Yeah.
And I think that's why like the inner child work is so important because
Yeah.
our inner childs took on, without, because our parents couldn't verbally process what they were going through, and we couldn't
Mhm.
verbally process what they were going through, but we all knew something was happening. And so like
Yeah.
having to clear that energy out of our inner child selves and helping them to feel safe again, and to
Yeah.
trust and open up, and to share its own pain,
Hmm.
which is exactly, kind of going back to the start of our conversation of what we're doing, like through massage, through embodied dance, through the quantum healing work of tapping
Yeah.
those spaces and allowing that energy to move through.
Yeah, and I think the key word of what I'm hearing you say that, I think is the first piece, which is just acknowledgement.
Mhm.
Like, oh, here's the truth of what we've experienced, or here's even the truth of what I've made it mean, but just being able to acknowledge and not continue the vow of silence.
Mhm.
Like, that's kind of what I think, we've decided, like, I'm going to start with that
Yep.
and it's going to unfold as it does. And that's sometimes the hardest piece is
Yep.
just to take that first, like, acknowledgement, like, oh, this happened.
Yep. And even
Yeah.
like, will the coach or healer that I'm working with, will they be able to witness me? And
Yeah.
that, you know, and hold that space to
Mm,
for it to all come out, because I've had, um, you know, clients who have had some, really intense trauma. And, they've said to me, like, you're the first person who has just really been able to witness me without like making them bad or wrong, without running away in fear or anything like that, but like truly holding that ground. And it's like, I don't
Absolutely.
understand. I just have to like be a witness for you to start to release this energy.
Yeah, one of my dear friends who I learned a lot from years ago, I've known forever, is probably one of the most profound healers. She taught me years and years ago, 90% of healing is just holding space,
Mhm.
and it's the thing, unfortunately, that I'm not a therapist, but I've had people come to me after being in decades of therapy, and they're like, well, this is the first time I'm actually moving through the thing, really.
Mhm.
And it's not because I'm so great, it's just witnessing, allowing, holding it with them, being able to move through in a way that they feel completely safe. And I think, not to bring it to this side note, but I think in a lot of professional therapist training, they don't really have to work on themselves to get the degree, to get the title or whatever. And it's like for the healer, it's the prerequisite.
Yep.
So that's what makes it different, because my partner's a therapist actually, and he's like, I didn't even believe in most of this stuff until I met you. But now that we're together and I've seen what you do, I'm like, holy God, there is this other aspect of healing that I just poo-pooed because it's not researched enough and it's not, written about, or I don't have the clinical studies on it. And he's like, you've changed my mind completely.
But but
Like multidimensional healing.
but the thing
So yeah, it's
that
been interesting.
quantum physicists have been proving this stuff. Just so much of their research has been like, either it's in places that people aren't looking because, it's
Right.
quantum physics and, most of the physicists aren't talking in like normal text, which
Right.
I love, Lynn McTaggart, because she's
Hmm.
taken a lot of that research and put it into terminology that the layperson can understand. Um,
Right.
but like they have been doing studies that like prove the phenomenon that healers have intuitively known for a really long time. And then like there's even been research that they've done that because it's gone against the proven or approved of narrative has been suppressed,
Right.
or like their research has been destroyed because we don't want this, like this
We
is
don't want people having that kind of power to heal themselves, then who makes money in the pharmaceutical industry?
exactly.
Whole other conversation. But yeah,
So,
absolutely true. Hmm.
yeah, so like anytime people are like, and that was for me, I started not quite researching quantum physics, but looking, for people like Lynn McTaggart and there was another book like the Everything Answer book or something like that, where quantum physicists looked at, all these studies. It was similar to what Lynn McTaggart did as well. Um, but
Yeah,
I
maybe you can put the name of that book in under the chat too, because I want to look
yeah,
at it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll share those. Um, but I had a friend who um, like said some really horrible things to me when I was even just kind of questioning and starting to research stuff and really starting on this path. And then like questioned what I was doing and some of the other healers that I was around. Um, and it was because of that that it did drive me to like, well, why am I doing this stuff, and why is this stuff working? Because I've had enough experiences at this point to know that there's something truly happening here, because there's you know things that I'm sharing during a session with somebody that there's no way I can know this.
No.
uh,
And the proof is in that they get better and they
yeah.
stay better.
Yeah, I had, one client like she was having some health issues and asked me to like go into
Mhm.
her field, and she's like, I'm not going to tell you, like I knew some of what she was going through, but she's like, there's some other stuff, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. And we were two different time zones, so like I did the session and sent her a recording of what I had done, and right
Right.
around the time that I sent the recording to her, like she had a release.
Wow.
Um, and like you can't make that stuff up. And so, I
Yeah.
was like, why is this working? So like that's really what led me to look at some of this stuff. And like if you look hard enough, there's proof. There's been
Well,
proof
it's the mind.
30s.
Yeah, the mind, the emotions, and the body coming
Mhm.
together and all getting on the same page. And that's what I've found true healing happening is like when you can acknowledge something mentally, feel it and experience it emotionally, and either move through it physically, energetically, or in some capacity. And I've had clients too where it's like, their doctor comes is like, why is your blood work different? And it's like, well, they had the courage to move through something that I held the space for. But it was like once they understood, moved through it, reclaimed it, it was like they went back and it was like, what is this? And it's like, well, that's what healing is.
Yep.
Healing is the mind, body, spirit getting on the same page. And it's not like this mysterious thing. It's really something that can be quite practical and anchored. And
Yep.
that's something that I think the both of us really stand for is like, how do we make this practical and, not so like in the etheric, untouchable, like I don't even know what that means.
Yep.
Like bringing it into deep integration in
Mhm.
like this is what it actually is in a bones and skin kind of way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Um, oh, what was I gonna say that, no, I don't remember now, but I was gonna touch on something that you said, but obviously it wasn't meant to be.
All good.
Um, oh, I know what I was gonna say, like about the change in, a doctor looking at somebody's results. Like, I can see how, like, through our collective history, you know, the women who were healers being labeled as witches because,
Right.
there were real changes that,
Right.
people who weren't doing this work couldn't understand. And so it must be witchcraft. And so, like,
Right.
this labeling and this, taking out true healers because it didn't fit the narrative.
Right.
But yeah,
Sound
got
familiar? No. Yeah. And I think that something is that you help people through and I'm a big advocate of is like really being able to identify like our persecution wounds where we're afraid of being seen because we're afraid of people finding out what we really do, who we really are. And it's not because it's like extraordinary, but there's something in us that knows when I showed people what I really did, I was exiled, I was killed, I was this, I was that, and our bodies remember.
Yep.
So it's like this idea of kind of flying under the radar when the world needs this work the most.
Yep. When we need to start to be more vocal, which is, why I think it's so important to start having these conversations, and sharing them, because the more we talk about them, the more, like you said at the beginning, like bringing back our power
Mm,
and really holding that power and that true authority.
hmm.
The more we speak it, the more we share, like, results of what we've done, or even, results of work we've received from people.
Yeah,
The more mainstream science and stuff and governments can't suppress it.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
this aspect of the collective has to get pretty strong and loud. And
mhm,
that's my hope and intention, for whatever time I have on this planet is to be part of that movement.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of movement, so, like, how can, people get in touch with you? How can they do your program or even work with you?
Yeah, yeah, thanks for asking. So, I lead a global dance teacher training using dance as a healing art form. The work's called Embodied Dance. My website is embodied-dance. If you connect with me on social media under my name, Allison Pagano, you'll see like a link tree, I think, on my page that has, different ways of working with me. I am doing an online event called Sacred Rage coming at the end of September because it was just something that I saw as a need and the people and the women especially I was working with. So we're going to move a lot of energy and reclaim it through dance and movement, through the archetypal feminine. And then I'm going to be starting some deeper healing through the chakra system, but I'm going to do the 12 chakras.
And I,
So my first program that I did years ago, which was called Embody Your Dance, it was the first 7. And learning what I've learned and moving what I've moved through in the last 5 or whatever years it's been, I'm going to bring the full multidimensional into the body, and we're going to process it through dance. And I'm going to start that probably within a few months.
Oh,
So
very
I do that kind of work, and then I work with people one-on-one if they want to go deeper. They want more of the, yeah, more of the one-on-one experience in a couple of different varieties. I work with my signature method, which is using choreography as a healing tool and reshaping our possibilities through our body patterns.
nice. Nice.
So yeah,
And I'll
that's the
share
work.
those links in the comments. So
Yeah, thanks, Megan. You're amazing. I'm just so grateful for you and all that you share, and you're just such a powerhouse. And I just adore you. I adore your ability to just be so compassionate, caring, and down to earth, and also so incredibly talented with how you bring through healing. And I'm just grateful to know you. So
I'm
thank
grateful for you and for the work and the shifts you've helped create within me. I really
you.
appreciate it.
Likewise. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming here and I'm so glad that we were able to do this while you were still in the States because you are in Australia. Um,
Yeah, I'm heading back there next week. So if anybody's here in Australia, so thanks to all for people who decided to pop on and join today. Thank you.
yeah, thank you, Angela
Yeah,
and Grace.
yeah,
And I'm sure like all the people that are in my group that are in Australia will watch the replay and be
yeah.
connected to you. So
Amazing.
yeah, so thank you so much. I really
Yeah.
appreciate this and the always the wonderful conversations with you.
Yeah, thank you.
And if anybody has any questions for Allison on the replay, just post them in the comments and you'll answer them whenever you get the chance.
Yeah, just post them and tag me for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so
Thanks,
much.
Megan. Wonderful. We'll speak soon.
Yes, have a wonderful rest of your visit at
New
in
Jersey.
yeah, the other thing we have in common.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I'll give it a hello for you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Love you
Love,
and
love
appreciate.
you. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.